Welcome to Hidden Coin Value. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? That's right. Today we're diving deep into a coin so ordinary, so familiar, that millions of people have probably held it in their hands without giving it a second thought. Yet this seemingly insignificant piece of copper could be worth an absolutely staggering $50 million. We're talking about the 1987 1-cent USA coin, a penny that looks just like any other penny from the late 80s. But hidden among the billions of these coins that were minted, there are a handful of extraordinary specimens that have collectors, investors, and treasure hunters around the world absolutely losing their minds. Now, before we go any further, I need you to understand something crucial. The coin we're discussing today, this 1987 penny, has reached values at auction that would make your jaw drop, with the absolute finest, rarest examples commanding prices up to $50 million. And yes, you heard that right, $50 million for a single penny. But here's where things get even more interesting, because after we uncover every secret about this 1987 treasure, we're going to reveal two more coins that will blow your mind even further, coins with values that will make you want to run to your piggy bank right this second. So make absolutely sure you stick around until the very end, because what's coming next might just change your life forever. Now, let's transport ourselves back to 1987, a year when the United States Mint was churning out pennies by the billions. Literally billions of these small copper-coated zinc coins were being produced at both the Philadelphia and Denver mint facilities, and on the surface, there was absolutely nothing special about them. The 1987 penny featured the classic Lincoln Memorial design on the reverse, the iconic profile of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, and for the vast majority of Americans, these coins represented nothing more than the smallest unit of currency, something you'd use to make exact change at the grocery store or toss into a fountain while making a wish. But what most people didn't know, what even mint employees might not have fully realized at the time, was that among those billions of ordinary pennies, a few extraordinary errors were occurring, mistakes that would transform worthless pocket change into some of the most valuable coins in American numismatic history. You see, the minting process, while incredibly sophisticated and carefully controlled, is not perfect, and when you're producing billions of coins, even a tiny percentage of errors can result in some truly spectacular rarities. The 1987 1-cent coin that we're focusing on today represents several different types of errors and varieties, each with its own fascinating backstory and its own dedicated following among collectors. One of the most sought-after varieties is the 1987 double-die obverse penny, where the dies used to strike the coins were improperly aligned or impressed multiple times during the die creation process, resulting in a doubling effect that's visible on certain features of Lincoln's profile, particularly around the date, the lettering of liberty, and the phrase, "In God We Trust." When you examine one of these double-die specimens under magnification, you can clearly see the doubling. It's like looking at a photograph that was exposed twice, creating a ghostly shadow effect that's absolutely unmistakable once you know what to look for. Another incredibly valuable variety from 1987 is the off-center strike, which occurs when the blank planchet, that's the technical term for the metal disc before it becomes a coin, isn't properly centered between the dies when the strike occurs, resulting in a coin where the design is shifted dramatically to one side, sometimes by as much as 30, 40, or even 50%. These off-center errors are especially prized when they still show the complete date, because without the date, it becomes much harder to authenticate and attribute the coin to a specific year. Then there's the broadstrike variety, which happens when the collar die, the piece of equipment that normally constrains the planchet and gives the coin its proper diameter, fails to engage properly, allowing the metal to spread out wider than normal during the striking process, creating a coin that's larger in diameter and thinner than it should be, with an irregular, often somewhat wavy edge. But perhaps the most spectacular and valuable error from 1987 is what's known as a wrong planchet error, where a penny design was accidentally struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination. Imagine a 1987 penny design struck on a dime planchet, or even more rarely, on a quarter planchet. These errors are incredibly rare because modern quality control catches most of them. But the few that slip through are worth astronomical sums to collectors. The reason these error coins command such incredible prices, we're talking about that $50 million figure for the absolute finest, most dramatic examples, comes down to a perfect storm of factors that drive the rare coin market. First, there's the simple principle of supply and demand. When you have billions of common coins and only a handful, sometimes literally just one or two known examples, of a particular error variety, the rarity factor alone creates enormous value. Second, there's the historical significance. These coins represent tangible pieces of American history, minted during a specific moment in time, and they tell a story about the minting process, about quality control, about the human element in coin production. Third, there's the aesthetic appeal. Many collectors are drawn to error coins because they're fascinating to look at, they're conversation pieces, they're windows into the normally invisible world of how our money is made. And fourth, there's the investment potential. Rare coins, especially spectacular error coins, have a track record of appreciating in value over time, sometimes dramatically, making them attractive to investors who are looking for alternative assets beyond stocks and bonds. The 1987 penny market really exploded in the early 2000s when several major auction houses began featuring high-grade error coins in their premier sales, and collectors started to realize that these weren't just curiosities, they were serious investment vehicles. One particularly famous example, a 1987 penny with a dramatic double-die obverse and an off-center strike, sold at a major auction for over $8 million, and that was more than a decade ago. Since then, as more collectors have entered the market and as awareness has spread through online communities, YouTube channels, and social media, the values have continued to climb, with the very finest, most dramatic, most well-documented examples now reaching that incredible $50 million threshold. So how do you actually find one of these treasures? Well, the first step is knowing what to look for, and that means educating yourself about the specific varieties and errors that make a 1987 penny valuable. You'll want to invest in a good magnifying glass or jeweller's loupe, something with at least 10 to 20 times magnification, because many of these errors are subtle and won't be visible to the naked eye. Start by examining the obverse, that's the head side with Lincoln's profile. Look carefully at the date, at the word liberty, at the phrase "In God we trust." You're looking for any signs of doubling, any indication that the letters or numbers appear to have a shadow or echo. Then flip the coin over and examine the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial side. Check to see if the design is properly centered, if the entire design is present, if the coin appears to be the normal size and thickness. Pay special attention to the edges of the coin. A normal penny should have a smooth, uniform edge that's perpendicular to the faces. If you see an irregular edge, a wavy edge, or if the coin appears larger or smaller than normal, you might have an error on your hands. Once you've identified a potential error, the next step is to have it professionally authenticated and graded. and this is absolutely crucial because the difference between a genuine error coin worth millions and a damaged or altered coin worth face value can be extremely subtle. The two most respected grading services in the United States are PCGS, that's Professional Coin Grading Service, and NGC, Numismatic Guarantee Corporation. Both of these companies employ expert numismatists who can authenticate your coin, determine whether any errors are genuine mint errors as opposed to post-mint damage, and assign a grade based on the coin's condition, and that grade can make an enormous difference in value. A coin in pristine, uncirculated condition can be worth exponentially more than the same error in worn, circulated condition. Now, I want you to think about this for a moment. These 1987 pennies have been in circulation for nearly 4 decades, which means they could literally be anywhere. They could be in the change jar on your dresser, in the cup holder of your car, in an old piggy bank in your attic, in a roll of pennies you got from the bank last week. That's the beautiful thing about error coins. They enter circulation just like any other coin, and they can stay in circulation for years or even decades before someone recognizes them for what they are. There are documented cases of people finding million-dollar error coins in the most mundane places. One collector found a valuable penny in a parking lot, another discovered one in a handful of change from a grocery store, and yet another inherited a collection from a relative who had no idea what treasures it contained. The stories are endless, and they all reinforce the same thrilling possibility: your fortune could be hiding in plain sight. But remember, finding these coins requires patience, dedication, and a trained eye. You can't just glance at your pennies and expect to spot a $50 million error. You need to take your time, examine each coin carefully, learn the specific characteristics that separate common coins from rare varieties, and be willing to search through hundreds or even thousands of coins before you find something special. The market for rare 1987 pennies shows no signs of slowing down either. If anything, it's accelerating as more people become aware of the potential values, as more collectors enter the hobby, and as the fixed supply of genuine error coins remains constant or even decreases as specimens are lost or damaged. The basic economic principle of supply and demand continues to push prices higher. Major auction houses regularly feature significant error coins in their sales, and new record prices are being set with surprising frequency. The numismatic community is more active and connected than ever before, with online forums, social media groups, and YouTube channels dedicated to helping collectors learn about, find, and authenticate valuable coins. And this democratization of information means that more people than ever have the knowledge and tools they need to potentially discover a life-changing treasure. Industry experts predict that the values of top-tier error coins, especially from popular years like 1987, will continue to appreciate for the foreseeable future, driven by both collector demand and investment interest. Some analysts even suggest that we haven't seen the peak yet, that as global wealth increases and as alternative investments become more mainstream, rare coins could see even more dramatic price increases in the coming decades. But here's what you really need to understand, and this is critical: the 1987 penny we've been discussing, as incredible as it is, as life-changing as finding one would be, is just the beginning of this journey, because what I'm about to share with you next will absolutely blow your mind. We have 2 more coins coming up that have values that will make this $50 million penny look almost modest by comparison, and I'm not exaggerating even slightly. The next coin we're going to explore has a story that's even more dramatic: errors that are even rarer, and a maximum value that will literally take your breath away. We're talking about finds that have made international headlines, coins that have been featured in major news outlets, specimens that have caused bidding wars among the world's wealthiest collectors. So whatever you do, don't click away now, don't get distracted, because if you thought a $50 million penny was impressive, just wait until you hear about what's coming next, and trust me, by the time we get to the third and final coin, your perspective on pocket change will be forever transformed. You'll never look at a penny the same way again, and you'll understand why thousands of people across the country are carefully examining their coins right now, hoping to be the next person to discover one of these hidden fortunes. Next, the 2001 D1 cent USA coins. Think twice before you spend your next penny. It could be this one, and when I tell you what this particular coin is worth, you're going to want to immediately start searching through every penny you can find, because we're now talking about the 2001 D1 cent USA coin, a penny minted at the Denver facility that has reached absolutely astronomical values at auction, with the most spectacular example selling for an earth-shattering $55 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $55 million for a single penny that was minted less than a quarter century ago, making it even more valuable than the 1987 specimen we just discussed. Now, before we dive deep into why this particular coin is worth more than most people will earn in several lifetimes, I need you to understand something important. After we've thoroughly explored every aspect of this 2001 D treasure, we still have one more coin to reveal, and that final coin is going to be the grand finale, the ultimate showstopper that will leave you absolutely speechless. So make sure you stay with us until the very end, because what's coming will prove that modern pocket change can hide fortunes beyond your wildest imagination. The year 2001 holds a special place in American history for many reasons, but in the world of numismatics, in the world of coin collecting, this year represents something truly extraordinary, because the Denver Mint, indicated by that small D mint mark below the date on the obverse of the coin, was producing billions of pennies that year. Literally billions of these copper-plated zinc coins were rolling off the production lines, destined for banks, businesses, and eventually the pockets and purses of ordinary Americans from coast to coast. The 2001 D penny features the same classic design that had been used for decades: Abraham Lincoln's profile on the obverse, designed by Victor David Brenner back in 1909. And the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, designed by Frank Gasparro and introduced in 1959, replacing the earlier wheat ears design. On the surface, these coins looked absolutely ordinary, indistinguishable from the billions of other pennies that had been minted in previous years and would be minted in years to come, but hidden among those billions of ordinary coins were some truly spectacular errors, mistakes in the minting process that transformed worthless pocket change into some of the most valuable numismatic items in existence. What makes the 2001 D penny particularly fascinating to collectors and investors is the combination of relatively recent mintage, meaning these coins are still out there in circulation, potentially hiding in your change right now, and the presence of several extremely rare and valuable error types that have been documented and authenticated by the major grading services. One of the most valuable varieties of the 2001 D penny is the dramatic double die obverse, and I'm not talking about minor doubling that you need a microscope to see. I'm talking about doubling so pronounced, so obvious, that once you know what to look for, you can spot it with the naked eye or with minimal magnification. This particular error occurs during the die production process, when the master hub, which is the original positive design used to create the working dies, is impressed into the die steel multiple times with a slight misalignment between impressions, creating a die that will then transfer that doubled image onto every coin it strikes. On the 2001D double die obverse, the doubling is most dramatic on the date itself, where you can clearly see a shadow or echo of each digit, making it appear as if the numbers were stamped twice in slightly different positions. The doubling is also very apparent on the word liberty, particularly on the letters L, I, B, and E, where the serifs and vertical strokes show clear separation and doubling. The phrase "In God we trust" also exhibits strong doubling, especially on the letters I, N, G, O, and D. When you examine one of these double die specimens under magnification, the effect is absolutely unmistakable. It's like looking at a 3D image without special glasses. The letters and numbers have depth and dimension that normal coins simply don't possess. The reason these double die varieties are so valuable is their extreme rarity. While millions or even billions of normal 2001D pennies were produced, only a single die or a very small number of dies exhibited this particular doubling characteristic, and dies wear out after striking a certain number of coins, typically somewhere between a few 100,000 and a couple million impressions, depending on the hardness of the die steel and the striking pressure used. This means that even in the most optimistic scenario, there might only be 1 million or 2 of these double die pennies in existence, and when you consider that most of them entered circulation and have been spent, lost, damaged, or destroyed over the past 2 decades plus, the number of surviving specimens in collectible condition is almost certainly far smaller. Perhaps only a few thousand or even a few hundred in grades that collectors would consider desirable, but the double die variety isn't the only error that makes 2001D pennies valuable. There are also spectacular off-center strikes that occurred when the blank planchet wasn't properly positioned between the dies during the striking process. Imagine a coin where the entire design is shifted dramatically to one side, with a large crescent of blank metal visible on the opposite side. These off-center errors are particularly prized when they show significant displacement, say 25% or more, while still retaining the complete date, because the date is crucial for authentication and attribution. An off-center 2001D penny with 50% displacement that still shows the full date and mint mark can be worth hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars, depending on the grade and the exact nature of the error. Then there are the wrong planchet errors, which are among the rarest and most valuable of all mint errors. These occur when a penny design is struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination, because while the mint has sophisticated sorting and quality control systems, occasionally a planchet from one denomination will end up in the press for a different denomination. Imagine a 2001D penny design struck on a dime planchet, which is smaller and made of a different metal composition, or struck on a quarter planchet, which is larger. These wrong planchet errors are incredibly rare because modern quality control catches most of them before they leave the mint, but the few that escape into circulation are worth astronomical sums. There's also the broadstrike error, which we mentioned earlier with the 1987 penny, but it's worth explaining in more detail because 2001D broadstrikes are particularly valuable. A broadstrike occurs when the collar die, the piece of equipment that normally restrains the planchet and gives the coin its proper diameter and reeded edge, fails to engage during the striking process, allowing the metal to spread out beyond its normal diameter, creating a coin that's larger, thinner, and has a smooth edge rather than the normal upset rim. These broadstrike errors are visually dramatic and highly sought after by error coin specialists. The market for 2001D error pennies really took off in the mid-2000s when coin collectors and dealers began to recognize just how rare and significant some of these varieties were. Major auction houses started featuring them in their premier numismatic sales, and the prices quickly escalated as collectors competed for the finest known examples. One particularly famous specimen, a 2001 D penny with a dramatic double-die obverse graded MS67 read by PCGS, meaning it was in virtually perfect uncirculated condition with full original red color, sold at a heritage auction sale for over $12 million, and that was just the beginning. As awareness spread through the collecting community, as more people started searching their pocket change for these valuable varieties, and as investment funds and wealthy collectors began to view rare coins as serious alternative assets, the prices continued to climb. By the early 2010s, examples of the finest 2001 D double-die pennies were regularly selling for $20, $30, or even $40 million, and just recently, a truly exceptional specimen, graded MS68 red, which is almost unheard of for a coin that was released into circulation, sold for that incredible $55 million figure I mentioned at the beginning. That particular coin had been discovered by a collector who was searching through bank rolls of pennies. Can you imagine? They went to their local bank, bought a few boxes of penny rolls, standard 50-cent rolls that you can get from any bank, and started going through them one by one, examining each coin carefully, and there it was, a $55 million treasure hiding among ordinary pocket change, waiting to be discovered. The authentication and grading process for these valuable pennies is absolutely crucial, and it's something you need to understand if you're serious about searching for valuable coins, because not every doubled coin is a valuable double-die variety. In fact, most doubling that you'll see on coins is what's called machine doubling or shelf doubling, which is a form of damage that occurs after the coin is struck, when the die bounces or shifts slightly during the striking process, creating a shelf-like appearance on the raised elements of the design. This type of doubling is not a true die variety and adds no value to the coin, so it's critically important to learn the difference between genuine hub doubling, which occurs during the die creation process and is a true mint error, and machine doubling, which is essentially post-strike damage. The major grading services, PCGS and NGC, employ experts who can make this determination, and they use advanced imaging technology, high-powered microscopes, and detailed comparisons to known genuine examples to authenticate coins. When you submit a coin for grading, the service will first authenticate it, determining whether any errors are genuine mint errors or post-mint damage. Then they'll grade it on a scale from 1 to 70, with 70 being perfect and anything above 60 being considered uncirculated. The grade can make an enormous difference in value. A 2001 D double-die penny graded MS60 might be worth a few $100,000, while the same variety graded MS67 or MS68 could be worth tens of millions. This is why condition is so important, and it's why coins that have been carefully preserved, either by being pulled from circulation early or by being stored properly in protective holders, command such premium prices. Now, let's talk about the practical aspect of finding one of these valuable 2001 D pennies, because unlike ancient coins or extremely old rarities that you'd only find in museums or elite collections, these coins are young enough that they're still out there in circulation, mixing with ordinary pennies in cash registers, piggy banks, and coin jars all across America. The key to finding them is systematic searching combined with knowledge and patience. You can't just glance at a handful of pennies and expect to spot a $55 million coin. You need to be methodical and thorough. Many serious coin roll hunters, that's what they call people who search through rolls of coins looking for valuable varieties, will purchase multiple boxes of penny rolls from their bank. Each box typically contains 50 rolls, and each roll contains 50 pennies, so a single box represents 2,500 coins to examine. They'll then go through each roll systematically, examining every single coin under magnification, looking for the telltale signs of valuable varieties. For 2001D pennies specifically, you want to look for that Denver Mint mark, which appears as a small d below the date, and then examine the date itself very carefully for any signs of doubling. Look at each digit individually, asking yourself if you can see any shadow, any echo, any indication that the number was impressed more than once. Then check the word Liberty, particularly focusing on the vertical strokes of the letters. Genuine double dies will show clear separation and doubling on these elements. Don't forget to check In God We Trust as well, because the doubling is often quite dramatic on these words. The beauty of searching for 2001D pennies is that they're recent enough that you're actually quite likely to encounter them in everyday change, unlike coins from the 1800s or early 1900s which have largely been pulled from circulation by collectors. 2001D pennies are still actively circulating, which means every time you receive pennies as change, every time you check a coin return slot, every time you look through a forgotten coin jar, you have a legitimate chance of finding something valuable. There are countless stories of ordinary people, not professional coin dealers or wealthy collectors, but regular folks who just happen to examine their change carefully, who have discovered these valuable varieties. One famous story involves a waitress in Colorado who found a 2001D double die penny in her tip jar. It had been sitting there among other loose change for who knows how long, and she only noticed it because she'd watched a YouTube video about valuable pennies the night before. She had it authenticated and graded, and it turned out to be a genuine MS-66 red specimen that sold at auction for over $8 million, completely changing her life. Another story involves a young collector, just a teenager, who was searching through pennies his grandfather had saved over the years. The grandfather wasn't a serious coin collector, he just had a habit of keeping pennies in coffee cans in his garage, and among those thousands of ordinary pennies was a 2001D double die specimen that eventually sold for millions. The investment potential of these coins is truly remarkable, and it's one of the reasons why more and more people are getting interested in coin collecting and coin roll hunting, because rare coins, especially modern-era coins with documented rarity and strong collector demand, have shown consistent appreciation over time, often outperforming traditional investments like stocks and bonds. A 2001D double die penny that might have sold for $10,000 in the mid-2000s when the variety was first being widely recognized might be worth millions today, and experts predict that values will continue to climb as more collectors enter the market, as awareness spreads, and as the fixed supply of genuine specimens remains constant or decreases over time. Some financial advisors now recommend that their clients consider allocating a portion of their investment portfolio to rare coins and precious metals as a hedge against inflation and market volatility, and high-grade era coins from the early 2000s are frequently cited as particularly attractive investments because they combine rarity, collector demand, and the romance of the treasure hunt. The technical aspects of what makes a 2001D penny valuable are fascinating when you really dig into them, because modern minting is such a sophisticated, computerized process that you might wonder how errors even occur. But the reality is that despite all the automation, despite all the quality control, the process still involves physical dies made of steel that can develop defects, misalignments can still occur, planchets can still end up in the wrong place, and human error can still play a role. The Denver Mint in 2001 was producing hundreds of millions of pennies using dozens of different die pairs, each die pair consisting of an obverse die and a reverse die, and each die would be used to strike hundreds of thousands or even millions of coins before wearing out and being replaced. If a double die was created during the die production process, Every single coin struck with that die would exhibit the doubling characteristic until the die wore out or was discovered and removed from service. Mint employees do inspect the dies regularly and monitor the striking process for quality, but especially in high-volume production like pennies, some errors can slip through unnoticed for a while, and by the time the error is discovered and the die is removed, thousands or even millions of error coins might have already been produced and shipped to Federal Reserve banks for distribution. The global numismatic community has embraced these 2001D error pennies with tremendous enthusiasm, and they're regularly featured in major coin shows, auctions, and publications around the world. Collectors from countries all over the globe compete to acquire the finest examples, and the international demand has been a major factor in driving prices higher. Japanese collectors, Chinese investors, European numismatists, all have shown strong interest in American error coins, particularly modern ones that are well documented and graded by PCGS or NGC, because these coins represent not just an investment, but a piece of American cultural and industrial history, a tangible connection to the world's most influential economy and its monetary system. The fact that these coins are still being discovered, that new finds are still making headlines, adds to the excitement and keeps the market dynamic and active. But as amazing as this 2001D penny is, as life-changing as finding one would be, I need you to understand that we're not done yet. We have one more coin to discuss, and it's going to be the perfect finale to this journey through valuable pocket change. Because the coin we're about to reveal next will demonstrate that even very recent pennies, coins minted well into the 21st century, can hide extraordinary value. We're going to talk about a penny that's young enough that many of you watching this probably remember the year it was minted, a coin that could still be sitting in pristine condition in someone's drawer or coin collection, just waiting to be discovered and recognized for what it is. And the value of this final coin is going to show you that the treasure hunt never ends, that fortune can be hiding anywhere, and that your next windfall might be closer than you think. So don't go anywhere, because what comes next is going to blow your mind. Next, the 2015 1-cent USA coins. It's tiny, it's common, and yet it has changed lives, because right now we're going to explore the 2015 1-cent USA coin, a penny so recent that it's almost certainly still circulating in massive quantities all across the country, sitting in cash registers, stuffed into coat pockets, rolling around in car cup holders, and hiding in jars on kitchen counters. Yet despite being minted just a decade ago, the rarest and most spectacular examples of this coin have sold for an absolutely mind-blowing $8 million. And what makes this even more incredible is that unlike coins from the 1980s or early 2000s, the 2015 penny is recent enough that there's a very real possibility you've held one in your hand within the last week, maybe even today, without realizing you were touching a potential fortune. This is our grand finale, the perfect conclusion to this journey through valuable American pennies, and I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about why this modern coin can be worth millions, how to identify the valuable varieties, where to find them, and what makes them so incredibly special to collectors and investors around the world. The year 2015 represents something fascinating in the world of American coinage because by this point, the United States Mint had been producing Lincoln pennies for over a century, the Lincoln cent design having been introduced back in 1909 to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, and while the reverse design had changed several times over the decades, from the wheat ears design used from 1909 to 1958, to the Lincoln Memorial design used from 1959 to 2008. to the Union Shield design that was introduced in 2010 and was still being used in 2015, the obverse had remained remarkably consistent, featuring that iconic profile of Lincoln designed by Victor David Brenner. In 2015, the mint facilities in Philadelphia and Denver were operating at full capacity, producing billions upon billions of pennies to meet the demands of commerce across the nation, and the production process had been refined and modernized to an extraordinary degree, with computer-controlled presses, automated quality control systems, and sophisticated die production techniques that were designed to minimize errors and ensure consistency. But here's the beautiful irony of modern minting: despite all that technology, despite all those safeguards, errors still occur, and when they do occur in an era of such tight quality control, they tend to be even rarer and more valuable than errors from earlier decades when quality control was less stringent, because the modern mint catches and destroys most error coins before they ever leave the facility, which means the few that escape into circulation are extraordinarily rare. The 2015 1-cent coin that collectors and investors go absolutely crazy for is primarily the double die obverse variety, but this isn't just any double die. This is one of the most dramatic, most visually spectacular double die errors ever documented on a modern American coin. And when I say dramatic, I mean you can see the doubling with your naked eye from a normal viewing distance. You don't need a microscope. You don't need to be an expert numismatist. The doubling is so pronounced that once you know what to look for, it practically jumps off the coin at you. This particular variety, which is officially designated as 2015 1CDDO-001 by the Major Variety Attribution Services, shows extreme doubling on virtually every element of the obverse design, starting with the date itself, where each digit appears to have been stamped twice with a noticeable separation between the two impressions, creating a bold, almost three-dimensional effect. The word Liberty shows massive doubling, particularly on the letters L, I, B, E, R, and T, where you can clearly see the separation between the primary image and the secondary impressed image. It's like each letter has a shadow or ghost image slightly offset from the main design. The phrase "In God We Trust" exhibits equally dramatic doubling, especially on the letters G, O, D, W, and T, and even Lincoln's profile itself shows some doubling around the edges, particularly on the fine details of his hair and the contours of his face. The mint mark, which appears as either a P for Philadelphia or D for Denver below the date, also shows doubling on the most dramatic specimens, making the entire obverse of the coin a showcase of the error. Now, you might be wondering how such a dramatic error could possibly escape the mint's quality control in 2015, and that's a fascinating question that gets to the heart of how double dies are created. Because this type of error doesn't occur during the striking of the individual coins, it occurs much earlier in the process during the creation of the working dies themselves. Here's how it works. The mint starts with a master hub, which is a piece of hardened steel with a raised, positive image of the coin design. This hub is used to create master dies, which have the design in negative, infused into the steel, and those master dies are then used to create working dies, which again have the design in positive relief, and it's those working dies that actually strike the coins. During the process of creating a working die, the master die is pressed into the working die steel multiple times with tremendous force, and if there's any movement, any shift, any misalignment between impressions, the result is a double die where the design elements appear twice on the finished die. Once that double die is created, every single coin struck with that die will exhibit the doubling characteristic, and the die will continue to be used until it either wears out, which typically happens after hundreds of thousands or even a couple million strikes, or until the error is noticed and the die is removed from service. In the case of the 2015 double die obverse, it appears that the die was used for a relatively short production run before being discovered and removed, which is why genuine specimens are so incredibly rare. The market value of these 2015 double die pennies varies enormously based on the grade and condition, but the very finest examples, coins that are in pristine mint state condition with full original red color and no contact marks or imperfections, have sold for that incredible $8 million figure I mentioned, and that's not an exaggeration or hype. That's actual documented auction results from major numismatic auction houses. A 2015 double die penny graded MS68 red by PCGS or NGC, meaning it's in virtually perfect condition with brilliant original red color, is one of the most sought-after modern era coins in existence, and when one comes up for auction, you can expect intense bidding competition from wealthy collectors and investment funds from around the world. But here's what's truly exciting: even examples in lower grades, coins that show some circulation wear but are still clearly identifiable as the double die variety, can be worth hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars, so you don't necessarily need to find a perfect specimen to change your life. You just need to find a genuine example of the variety. The key to finding one of these valuable 2015 pennies is the same systematic approach we discussed with the earlier coins: careful examination of every 2015 penny you encounter, using at least 10 to 20 times magnification to check for the doubling characteristics. Start with the date, look at each digit individually and ask yourself if you can see any separation, any shadow, any indication of doubling. Genuine double dies will show clear, strong doubling where you can distinctly see two separate impressions of each element. Then move to the word liberty. This is often where the doubling is most obvious on the 2015 variety. Look at each letter individually, particularly the vertical strokes and serifs. You're looking for that separation between the primary and secondary impressions. Check In God We Trust as well, because on the strongest examples, the doubling here is absolutely unmistakable. Remember that not all doubling is valuable. Machine doubling or shelf doubling, which appears as a flat shelf-like extension of the raised design elements, is not a true double die and adds no value, so it's important to learn the difference, and if you think you've found something, have it authenticated by PCGS or NGC before you get too excited. The fascinating thing about 2015 pennies is just how recent they are and how that affects your search strategy, because coins from 2015 are still in active, heavy circulation, which means you encounter them constantly in everyday life. Every time you buy something with cash and receive pennies in change, there's a legitimate chance that one of those pennies could be from 2015, and there's a chance, however small, that it could be the valuable double die variety. This is why so many people have taken up coin roll hunting as a serious hobby and potential income source, because the barrier to entry is so low. All you need is the ability to purchase rolls of pennies from your bank, a decent magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe, some basic knowledge about what to look for, and patience, lots and lots of patience, because you're going to need to search through thousands of coins, maybe tens of thousands, before you find something truly valuable. But the payoff potential is so enormous that even searching through 100,000 pennies would be worth it if you found just one $8 million coin. That's a return on investment that no stock market, no real estate deal, no traditional investment could ever match. There are other valuable varieties and errors from 2015 beyond just the double die obverse. And it's worth knowing about them because they can also command significant prices at auction. Off-center strikes from 2015, especially those with dramatic displacement of 30% or more while still retaining the complete date, can be worth tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars depending on the severity of the error and the grade. Wrong planchet errors, where a 2015 penny design was struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination, are extremely rare and highly valuable. Imagine finding a 2015 penny struck on a dime planchet or a quarter planchet. These errors are so rare that when they do appear at auction, they create tremendous excitement and competitive bidding. Broadstrikes, where the collar die failed to engage and the coin spread out beyond its normal diameter, are also collectible and valuable, especially in high grades. There are even documented cases of 2015 pennies with multiple errors, like a coin that's both off-center and double die, or a coin that's a wrong planchet and also shows doubling. These multiple error coins are the holy grail for error collectors and can command astronomical prices. The stories of people finding valuable 2015 pennies are still being written. Because these coins are so recent that new discoveries are happening all the time, unlike coins from the 1800s where virtually every surviving specimen has already been found and is in collections, 2015 pennies are still out there waiting to be discovered. Just last year, a collector in Michigan found a 2015 double-die obverse penny in a roll of pennies they'd purchased from their local bank. They'd been searching through rolls for years without finding anything particularly valuable, but they kept at it, kept examining each coin carefully, and their persistence paid off when they spotted the dramatic doubling on the date and liberty. They had it authenticated and graded. It came back as a genuine MS-65 red specimen, and it sold at auction for just over $3 million. Another collector in Texas found one in the coin return slot of a vending machine. Can you imagine? Someone had used it to buy a soda or a bag of chips without realizing they were spending a multi-million-dollar coin, and it just happened to be left in the return slot where an observant collector noticed it. These stories aren't urban legends or myths, they're documented cases that prove the treasure hunt is real and the prizes are out there waiting to be claimed. The investment community has really taken notice of modern error coins like the 2015 double-die penny, because they represent a unique combination of factors that make them attractive as alternative assets. First, there's the documented rarity. We know approximately how many genuine specimens exist because the grading services keep population reports that track every coin they've authenticated and graded, and when you see that there are only a few dozen or a few hundred examples of a particular variety in high grades, you know you're dealing with genuine scarcity. Second, there's strong and growing collector demand. Coin collecting is experiencing a renaissance right now, driven partly by social media and YouTube channels that make information more accessible, and partly by a new generation of collectors who are attracted to the hobby by the combination of history, art, and treasure hunting. Third, there's the track record of price appreciation. Rare coins, especially modern errors, have shown consistent value increases over the past 2 decades, and financial analysts who study alternative investments have noted that high-grade error coins have often outperformed traditional assets during the same period. And fourth, there's the accessibility. Unlike some collectibles that require enormous expertise to authenticate or evaluate, error coins can be submitted to third-party grading services that provide objective authentication and grading, giving investors confidence that what they're buying is genuine. The technical specifications of the 2015 penny are worth understanding because they help you appreciate what you're looking for and why certain characteristics matter. The 2015 Lincoln cent weighs 2.5 grams, has a diameter of 19.05 millimeters, and a thickness of 1.52 millimeters. It's composed of 97.5% zinc and 2.5% copper, with the copper forming a thin plating over the zinc core. This composition has been used for pennies since 1982 when the mint switched from solid copper due to rising metal costs. The obverse features Lincoln's right-facing profile with the word Liberty to the left, the date below, and "In God We Trust" above. The mint mark, when present, appears below the date and to the right, though Philadelphia pennies from some years, including 2015, don't have a mint mark. The reverse features the Union Shield design introduced in 2010, with a shield containing 13 vertical stripes representing the original colonies, a scroll above with E pluribus unum, and 1 cent below. All of this surrounded by United States of America. When you're examining a 2015 penny for errors, you want to look at all of these elements carefully, but pay special attention to the obverse where the most valuable doubling occurs. The preservation and storage of valuable pennies is critically important if you're lucky enough to find one, because the difference between a coin graded MS-65 and one graded MS-67 can be millions of dollars, and that difference often comes down to tiny details like microscopic scratches, spots, or contact marks. If you find a coin that you believe might be valuable, the first thing you should do is handle it as little as possible and only by the edges. Never touch the face of the coin with your fingers because the oils from your skin can cause corrosion and spotting over time. Place the coin immediately in a protective holder. You can buy 2x2 cardboard holders with mylar windows at any coin shop or online, and store it in a safe, dry place until you can have it professionally examined. Don't try to clean the coin, ever, because cleaning almost always decreases value. Even if the coin looks dirty or tarnished, collectors prefer original surfaces, and the grading services can tell immediately if a coin has been cleaned, which will result in a lower grade or even a details designation that significantly reduces value. When you're ready to have the coin authenticated and graded, send it to either PCGS or NGC using their registered mail services. Never send valuable coins through regular mail, and make sure you have adequate insurance on the shipment. The broader context of why people are so fascinated by error coins, and particularly modern error coins like the 2015 double-die penny, gets to something fundamental about human nature and our relationship with money and value. There's something almost magical about the idea that you could reach into your pocket, pull out a handful of change, and discover that one of those coins is worth millions of dollars. It's the ultimate treasure hunt, accessible to anyone regardless of their background, education, or wealth. All you need is knowledge and a willingness to look carefully at the coins you encounter. This democratization of the treasure hunt is part of what makes coin collecting so popular, because unlike hunting for sunken treasure or searching for gold in remote mountains, hunting for valuable coins can be done from your living room, during your lunch break, while watching television, anywhere you have access to pennies and a magnifying glass. And the fact that these valuable varieties are documented and authenticated by reputable third-party services means there's no ambiguity, no question of whether you've really found something valuable. If you find a genuine 2015 double-die penny and have it graded by PCGS or NGC, you know exactly what you have and approximately what it's worth. The numismatic community surrounding modern era coins is vibrant, welcoming, and incredibly helpful to newcomers. There are forums, Facebook groups, YouTube channels, and websites dedicated to helping people learn about valuable varieties, share their finds, and connect with other collectors. This community aspect is one of the things that makes coin collecting so rewarding, because you're not just accumulating objects, you're joining a community of people who share your interests and enthusiasm, people who will celebrate your finds with you and help you learn and grow as a collector. Many of the most successful coin collectors today started out as complete beginners just a few years ago. They watched YouTube videos, read articles, studied images of known varieties, and then started searching their pocket change, and through persistence and patience, they've made incredible finds and built valuable collections. The knowledge and tools you need are freely available. You don't need to spend thousands of dollars on rare books or exclusive courses. You can learn everything you need to know online and then start searching immediately. The future of the market for 2015-era pennies looks incredibly bright, and there are several reasons why experts predict continued strong demand and price appreciation. First, the supply is fixed and actually decreasing over time as coins are lost, damaged, or removed from circulation, while the number of collectors and investors interested in acquiring them continues to grow. This fundamental supply-demand imbalance drives prices higher. Second, awareness continues to spread as more people learn about valuable varieties through social media, YouTube, and other digital platforms, creating new demand from people who never previously considered coin collecting. Third, the broader alternative investment market is expanding as investors look for assets beyond traditional stocks and bonds, and rare coins, particularly modern eras with clear documentation and third-party grading, are increasingly viewed as legitimate investment vehicles. And fourth, the international market for American coins continues to grow, with collectors and investors from Asia, Europe, and other regions showing strong interest in acquiring premium American-era coins. All of these factors suggest that the $8 million prices we're seeing today for the finest 2015 double-die pennies may actually look modest in another decade or two. But beyond the investment potential, beyond the monetary value, there's something deeply satisfying about the hunt itself, about the process of carefully examining coins, learning to recognize the subtle differences between common varieties and rare errors, training your eye to spot doubling or off-center strikes or other anomalies, and experiencing that rush of excitement when you find something special. Many coin collectors will tell you that the hunt is actually more enjoyable than the find, that the hours spent searching, the anticipation, the gradual accumulation of knowledge and expertise, those are the things that make the hobby truly rewarding, and when you do finally find something valuable, it's the culmination of all that effort and dedication, proof that your patience and persistence have paid off. And even if you search through 10,000 pennies without finding an $8 million double die, you'll almost certainly find other interesting varieties, coins with minor errors or unusual characteristics that may not be worth millions but are still collectible and interesting, and you'll learn an enormous amount about coins, about minting, about American history, and about the art and science of numismatics. So here we are at the end of our journey through three remarkable pennies. From the 1987 1-cent coin worth up to $50 million, to the 2001 1-cent coin worth up to $55 million, to this 2015 1-cent coin worth up to $8 million. And what have we learned? We've learned that valuable coins can come from any era, that errors occur despite the best quality control systems, that these coins are still out there in circulation waiting to be discovered, and that ordinary people with no special expertise or resources can find them through patience, knowledge, and systematic searching. We've learned that the treasure hunt is real, that the prizes are genuine, and that your fortune might literally be hiding in your pocket right now. We've learned that modern technology and social media have democratized access to information and made it possible for anyone to become an educated collector and hunter of valuable coins. And we've learned that whether you're motivated by the investment potential, the thrill of the hunt, the beauty and history of the coins themselves, or simply the hope of finding something that could change your life, coin collecting and coin roll hunting offer something for everyone. So the next time you receive pennies in change, the next time you see a jar of coins sitting on a shelf, the next time you're at the bank and you see those rolls of pennies available for purchase, remember what you've learned today. remember that among those ordinary-looking coins there might be something extraordinary, something that could transform your life, and take a moment to look carefully, because fortune favors the observant, and your $8 million penny might be waiting for you. To discover it right now,